The clinical practice, as I experienced it, the workflow, the patients, the medicines we have, the diagnostics we have, are actually decades behind what technology can actually offer us and what science can actually offer us.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Leumi Tech, sponsored by Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Turing, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and in media partnership with C-Tech. Welcome to another episode of 20-Minute Leaders. I am joined today by Kfir Oved, founder and CEO of Canopy Immuno-Therapeutics. Kfir has a dual background in medicine and a PhD in immunology. He is a serial bio-entrepreneur with an endless passion for outcome-driven, personalized technology-agnostic medicine. Co-founder, CTO, chairman of Navina.ai, that translates our immune response signals into accurate and actionable diagnostics at the point of care. Seated and serves as chief strategy in Navina.ai, and recently founded and serves as the CEO of Canopy Immuno-Therapeutics. Kfir Oved, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Thank you for joining me minutes before you're taking a flight to Italy for your daughter's karting competition. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Great to be here.
So we're going to talk a lot about biotech and medicine and your time, as chief technology officer. But before that, I have to stop and dwell on the fact that your three children seem to all be, really into cars and karts. I believe that your daughter is currently racing and with the hopes of becoming Formula One driver, and your son is looking as a mechanic. What's happening over there?
So it's basically we're a pretty motoric sports family. So my daughter started with racing. My younger one also followed her, and the middle one is actually a future to be an engineer, I think. So he was actually attracted not to the driving, and to the stages, but actually to the hard, I would say, tedious work of being a mechanic. But that's his passion. So, I mean, they're all doing what they like, and I'm just here to support.
And so, was there anything specific that draws them into this? Because it looks like the three siblings are together, looking at something that is pretty different from what you've been dedicating yourself to over these past years.
So let's just say that Daddy is a fan of sports cars, okay? And we'll put it there because again, I don't want to take too much responsibility on that.
I love it. So tell me a little bit about your entrance to the biotech space. So you've spent a lot of time being the CTO and chairman of Navina.ai, translating the immune response signals into actionable diagnostics and point of care. I don't even know what that sentence means yet. I'm gonna need you to explain that to me.
Sure.
But how do you decide that you're gonna work in biotech? How does that happen?
So first of all, a lot of decisions in life are not being made by you, but actually by life itself and serendipity. For me, the big dream was to be a medical doctor, but my grades, my GPA grades here in Israel were more in the order of 3 something, and not close to 4 as is required here in Israel. And actually, you need some really crazy grades to get into med school. And I had 2 alternatives. Basically, the first one was to try to improve my GPA, and the second one was to pursue a first degree in life science. And I decided to pursue a first degree in life science in biology in the Technion Institute of Technology, which is the equivalent of United States MIT. And I actually started with the aspiration just to get into med school, no more, no less. But again, just by serendipity, I just fell in love with biology. And after graduating biology first degree with excellence and being accepted to med school, I was very generously offered by one of my teachers in the faculty of biology to actually do a direct PhD in biology. And this started actually the hardest, most exciting years of my life. Of taking med school in the morning, going to classes, being in the departments, learning the medical practice, and afternoon packing my things, going up the hill to the Carmel Faculty of Biology, and starting putting the experiments in my PhD in immunology. And I think these were shaping years for me because what I realized is that the clinical practice, as I experienced it, the workflow, the patients, the medicines we have, the diagnostics we have, are actually decades behind what technology can actually offer us and what science
Wow.
can actually offer us. And for me, from here on, and this is reality, and it will always be the reality. So for me, the crusade has become into closing the gap between, big clinical problems and, science and technology. I come from the clinical need and not from the technology itself. I think technology needs to serve the clinical need and not vice versa. But, after graduating, both my PhD and, finishing the Minister of Health exams, I actually had three options. The first one is to go to the academy, try to get a PI position here in Israel. The second one was to become a practicing physician, and the third one was something else. And you know what? Something else happened. So I bumped pretty close to graduating my med school into a problem of antimicrobial resistance, bacterial antimicrobial resistance, which is actually a phenomena that we know since the invention of antibiotics. And the basic phenomena is that once you're using too much antibiotics, some bacteria are becoming resistant to it, and under this selective pressure are also controlling the environment. And this is by far one of the biggest challenges in modern medicine. It's not about pneumonia. It's not about curing the ear infection of your kid, even though it's also this. But it's actually about the entire future of modern medicine because we don't have oncology
Wow.
without antibiotics, and we don't have neonatology without antibiotics, and we don't have orthopedics without antibiotics. If you think about it, that's probably the very basic mainstay of modern medicine as we know it. So losing the effectiveness of antibiotics is not a tiny thing. It's actually a massive, massive healthcare related problem. And I was doing my PhD in immunology these days, and once you have a hammer in your hand, everything looks like a nail, right? And for
Yes.
me, it was like a perfect nail because I actually said, most of the antibiotics is being overprescribed because people are mixing, physicians are mixing, or cannot actually get into certainty about whether a disease is viral or bacterial. Where in bacterial, you need to prescribe antibiotics. In viral infections, you do not need. You're actually not recommended to prescribe antibiotics at all. And I said, basically, this is exactly what the immune system is doing, right? The immune system is identifying the pathogen, identifying the bug. If it's a virus, it's mounting one attack. If it's a bacteria, it's mounting a completely different attack, okay? So imagine we could actually measure our immune response and translate that within minutes into bacterial, viral, prescribe or do not prescribe antibiotics. And this for itself might spare hundreds of millions of over prescriptions of antibiotics annually, just solving
Wow.
this seemingly tiny problem. Okay. And that was basically the beginning of the journey. So I decided not academy and not practicing medicine. I decided to pursue after this specific problem with my co-founder, and actually found Mime Diagnostics, which is right now a company that has over 100 employees and raised over
Wow.
$120 million, and actually getting very, very close to the patients with both the technology and a platform that we developed, which again, I'll be happy to talk about in the last decade. So that's Mimed. But I think, as I told you, the journey didn't stop for me in Mimed because for me, again, so once the R&D and technology risk in Mimed went down, it was pretty obvious that I would like to do many more things in my life. And as part of that, I helped to seed a pretty amazing digital health company here, founded by A200 veterans here in Israel called Navina, Shai and Ronen, and also founded an immunotherapy company that right now develop what we call an anti-vaccine, which is a new class of molecules that are doing exactly the opposite to what a vaccine is doing. And by doing so might allow us to create either a long-term remission or even cure for patients with autoimmunity and allergy. So it's a long journey. I hope it's still on its way, and that's basically how it all started.
So I have more of a personal question for you. How does it? I mean, I'm just assuming, but I think it's a pretty safe assumption that most people around you, not necessarily in the offices, but most people around you in your life, don't necessarily understand the details and the intricacies of what you're doing. Even if you sit down and after these 20 minutes, I'll begin to gain the curiosity and the passion to go and dive deeper. It's not trivial what you're doing, and it's a lot of things that require domain expertise to even understand why what you're doing makes sense and how it's actually going to impact and make the snowball effect later on. Is that a challenge for you in
Of
any
course,
way over the past 12 years or so with Memedex or even previously as you were studying these things?
of course, and I think maybe some entrepreneurs do not experience it this way, but at least for me, I mean, it's an excellent question. I've never been asked this question before, to be honest with you. And the more I think about it, I think it's a very important one because many people come with great ideas and they have a very deep conviction of the value that they might bring to the world. But they also need to bear in mind that in many cases, the immediate reaction and even late reactions might not be supportive, might not fully understand the potential of what they're suggesting, and in many cases might even be considered ridiculous, right? Or impractical. And to be honest with you, there are professors here in Israel, very respected professors for medicine that claim that, you know, what we suggested to perform in MIMED is not going to be done in the next 100 years. We don't have the technology to do that, and that's never going to work. So we heard, these type of I would say kind of dismiss of or tuning down or lowering expectations from what people believe you might bring to the world. And so this is maybe one thing that young entrepreneurs need to take in mind or bear in mind, that it's not necessarily always going to be a popularity context about what you'd like to do. The second thing is that professionally, it's a very, I think, it's a very lonely lifestyle. So, as you said, I mean, at home, yes, you cannot really share anything because it's just I mean, you can give the high level, you can try to describe it to others, but the real dilemmas are so complicated in many cases, so detailed and so technical that who cares? I mean, no one cares, and no one
Right.
will understand the subtleties. So you need to actually have a dialogue with yourself, which is kind of psychiatric in its in
Yeah.
some aspects. In shower, before you go to sleep, when you wake up in the middle of the night, and you leave the bed and go to the computer and think and work. But there aren't a lot of people you can share your ideas with that can fully understand, and that is not something that you should take, either as an impediment or as a proof that you're not right, but actually just a fact of life that it is going to be lonely.
Right. And so, what do you do in those, 12 or more years as you go through? I mean, obviously, you have that internal conviction that, what you're doing is going to make a tremendous impact on the world and is going to make a tremendous impact on a lot of people. And I'm sure that what you said before, that I'm sure that every time somebody took a crack at what we're doing in Mehmed, I'm pretty sure that it just spiked even more interest in you to actually go and prove them wrong. But then how do you then what do you do in those 12 years to actually push yourself forward and make sure you're with the right people and you're really getting the right atmosphere to be a good entrepreneur?
I think it's composed of two maybe conflicting, I would say, state of minds. Okay, a state of mind. That the first one would be actually to dream. Okay, to be able to see a future, a different future, again, as I said, it all comes, for me at least, from a problem, from a clinical dilemma. And other
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs in other sectors, completely different than medicine and life sciences, can also apply the exact same, modus operandi or way of thinking, which is what is the problem, or what is the delta value that can be created here. And
Right.
you need to be kind of a dreamer, but you need to be, on the other hand, a practical dreamer. So on one hand, you need to have a very, I think, solid grand vision to a future that will look differently, significantly better, right? The 10x mantra from Peter Thiel. And on the other hand, you need to be extremely practical. So the goals and the steps and the plan needs to be well thought through, well planned, very practical, tied to a timeline, tied to a budget, tied to risk management, etc. And it's always this balance between being practical, being methodological, being hardworking, to being what I call a, a dreamer or creative dreamer, which is actually kind of disconnected from the current reality.
Of course, I think that's the point. And fear. So the dreamer in you, where you've done so much of the hard work, and both academia and then all those years in Mehmet and now Canopy. Tell me your dream. Where are we headed, or where are we headed? In the next 10, 20 years, and how is the world, in your mind, going to re-experience medicine and research through the work that you're spending most of your time today?
I think medicine is not going to be even 2% similar to what it is today in 50 years' time. I think what's going to change, everything is going to change. Everything is going to change so dramatically that I think people are really not even close to understanding the revolutions that we're heading. I think the first, it has a few verticals. The first one is gene editing, and the ability to manipulate genes and to actually play with our operating system, to tune it, to fix it, to improve it. And the beginning would be to cure diseases, but unfortunately, I don't think it's going to stop there. We're going to improve as species. I hope that humanity is going to do that properly with the right, I would say, ethical, rules. But that's a threat. That's something that I'm actually pretty much concerned about. The second element is, of course, deep learning and artificial intelligence and other, machine intelligence technologies that will for sure be developed, which are slowly and surely and recently also pretty quickly and surely will replace physicians. So the role of the human being in the clinical practice is going to change from the brains to the patient, to the human interaction. And I think humans, in this respect, if they will know how to take these revolutions to their advantage, will get to the right place that human beings should be, which is to support, which is to be empathetic, which is to again to be more on the I think mental side, to the side of the patient, than on the just being able to diagnose properly and suggest the right treatment. Because I believe that 20 years from now, again, algorithms are going to rule many of these processes, both the diagnosis and the treatments. So this is maybe a second element. Gene therapy one, artificial intelligence two, and on top of that, you can dream from here on about robotics, what robotics can do. You can dream about what other deep technologies can do to medicine. In any case, you know forget about I have, shortness of breath. I'll schedule a meeting with my MD 3 days from now, go to the clinic, being examined for 8 minutes, get a piece of paper, and usually won't get better. So I don't
Right.
see medicine continue this way. It's just A, not non-sustainable, and B, the amounts of data that we're collecting today will bring new notions, new understanding. Medicine is going to be computerized completely within a few decades.
Kfir, I'm leaving this call with so much energy, even though it's so early in the morning. And again, thank you for taking the time right before you're taking your daughter to a karting competition in Italy. And I think that, when you're describing this idea of passion, resilience, and at the end, a lot of being very, honest with yourself and what you want to do and how to also tackle the challenges around you, I think it shines also through the fun fact that you shared with me. And I really want to, thank you for coming for these 20 minutes. It was really, really fantastic. And to me, it just creates the curiosity to go and dive in deeper, which is exactly why I started this show. And so I really, really thank you for that. I do have a few fun questions about you before we leave. And we'll start off with a pretty easy one, but a really interesting one. One of your favorite subjects from middle school or high school?
Unfortunately, there is no such topic. So I hated high school, and I was a lousy student. I'm sorry to say that.
Wow.
But I do want to say all those lousy students in high school today that are dreamers, that have a passion in them, that oh, high school is just high school, okay? And
Yeah.
you can fly very high even if you're not an amazing student. In high school, you can get really great student, and if you're passionate about what you learn and what you do.
I love it. And who would be a role model or somebody that inspires you in this world?
Yeah, I give it some thinking, but and I'm sorry to be a cliche here, and I am a cliche in this respect, but I'm a pretty consistent cliche for many, many years. So I'm a big fan of Elon Musk. And actually, the reason why I see Elon Musk as a role model is not only because of the vision of the guy, which disrupted, traditional industries one after the other, but also, and maybe even more, because of the level of, craziness and dedication and, they endless passion to what this guy is doing. So he had, he spent his $200 million from his first exit, getting into near bankruptcy, um, just to make that into $200 billion, right? But that's the end of the story. He didn't know when he slept on the couches of friends and families' apartments. He didn't know that. He invested everything he had in what he believed, and his level of passion
Amazing.
is something I think is contagious. Is amazing.
Contagious. I love that. And what are three words that you would use to describe yourself?
So the first word is actually is two words. It's practical dreamer. I think it's really important because I'm not practical and I'm not a dreamer. I'm a practical dreamer, so that's point number one. I'm extremely passionate about everything I do, and passion is in everything I'm doing. And I'm also a pretty sensitive guy, I think. So that's maybe the third character that describes me.
Kfir, toda rabba rabba. Thank you
With
very,
pleasure.
very much. This was just inspiring, and this is the absolute best way to start off the day. Thank you very, very much. Have a safe flight. Best of
Wonderful.
luck to your daughter,
Far too
and
short. Thank you very much, Michael. We'll
stay
be in
safe and
touch.
stay
Bye
healthy.
bye.